Well, probably the biggest thing that has happened recently occurred about 2 weeks ago. Need to give you a little background information. Last year in our legislative session, that's the first session again where the Democrats had control both of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. They passed a number of really radical bills. One of them was a change to the Minnesota Human Rights Act. The Minnesota Human Rights Act was passed in 1993, so it's about 30 years old. It was an act that sought to bring a balance between the rights of people not to be discriminated against unjustly, and it includes a listing of people who had been suffered from discrimination in the past. So you probably remember the old litany of race, color, creed, religion. Well, last year the Democrats added an additional group, an additional protected group, and that group was gender identity. So being translated, folks who suffer either from sexual gender dysphoria, people who view themselves as born in the wrong body, that kind of thing. So all of the other protected classes in the Minnesota Human Rights Act for these past 30 years, there has always been an exception, a religious exemption built in, which essentially said, state, you may not come and force churches or church schools to adopt your view of discrimination. So last year, when this new protected class was added, there was no protection. There was no exemption added for that to correspond to that. So that meant that church schools would be open to lawsuits based on discrimination by gender identity. And this is the first time that religious entities had been open to that kind of legal attack.
So would that mean that if our school was looking to hire, say, a teacher or someone like at the front desk, as the kids are coming in, and if someone were to apply for that, and let's say they were a transgender or they were a guy identifying as a girl, something like that, that the church / school would not be able to say that goes against our belief system and therefore we can't hire you for this position. Is that right? This law would mean that we would not be able to make that stance.
That is basically correct. That would certainly be true of a teacher in the classroom. The more the employee would be expected to embody the mission and ministry of the school, that would be the most concerning thing. A custodian, maybe not quite so much. But certainly in those that carry the mission forward day to day. So what happened then was that most people assumed that the accompanying exemption was not included, and that was simply an oversight. That in the past, whenever a new protected group had been added, there had also been an exemption added for that group. So we approached the Democratic leadership of the House and the Senate and said, we think you've made an oversight here. There's a fairly easy fix to this. All you have to do is, in that list of exemptions, you simply add the words "and gender identity," so that it too would fall under this exclusion or exemption.
And did they say, oops?
They did not say, oops. In fact, in a committee hearing, that they were very clear, where some of the legislators said for the first time, no, we were very much aware of the language and the impact of the language. And so when we came with an amendment to correct what we thought was an oversight, we were greeted with some rather, what is the right word? Hostile legislators.
Yeah.
So I was one of 4 testifiers in which we came and asked the committee to please back this amendment so that the exemption would be restored to the way it had been for the last 30 years. But the reaction was explosive. We were told in no uncertain terms that our viewpoints were medieval and antiquated and just plain hateful. And so even though we believe we made a very common sense proposal to maintain this delicate balance that had existed for 30 years, so that people who needed protection, needed their rights protected, would be, but the church would not be forced to violate its conscience or people in the church. That delicate balance was destroyed a year ago, and they were unwilling to do what it takes to restore that balance.
Yeah. And I mean, just for like the here, just to see how practical this is, right? So to your point, a janitor, you can have a discussion about something like that, right? As far as what that would look like if at Trinity Lutheran Church and School, if a janitor was having a, different gender identity or something like that.
Right.
But the people that spend money, discounted money, but spend money and send their children into the 3rd grade classroom are expecting that 3rd grade teacher is a proper representative of what the Lutheran Church and the Christian Church believe and confess, so that the unity comes throughout what pastor's saying on Sunday to what the teacher's saying on the 3rd grade teacher saying, and then the parents. And to plug in somebody who overtly, not even just with a little bit of confusion, but overtly says, there's big parts of what you believe, church and school, that I disagree with, and I'm going to embody and to teach something contrary, that is extraordinarily damaging, certainly from a perspective from a Christian, but just for the institutional integrity, that's extraordinarily damaging. And they don't see that.
That's right? That's exactly right. And it's very appropriate that you should use the word embodied, because in this case, it is literally the presentation of your body that speaks volumes as to whether or not you subscribe to a biblical worldview or not. And so even aside from what words might be spoken, the simple physical presentation is meaningful as well. But as it stands right now, the Democratic leadership of the House and the Senate and the governor, he's been involved in these talks as well, have been unwilling to make this change, to simply reinstitute the mutual respect that had existed before, to reestablish this delicate balance. They've not been unwilling to do that. In response to that, that hearing was recorded. That recording has been viewed by, I'm sure, many thousands of people here in the state of Minnesota, and I'm sure beyond as well. And they had a chance to see very up close and personal what a clash between a Christian worldview and a progressive atheist worldview looks like, because it was on full display in that hearing. And I think it was very shocking to people to see what what that looks like and what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.